Hi guys, welcome to Colabiria. Welcome to our Java 4 course. In this tutorial, we are going to introduce the 8 kinds of primitive and non-primitive data type used within Java programming language. Welcome and let's get started. The first thing I did was to create our empty class, our empty Java class, and I include our public static void main method, which is the entry point to our Java program. So now we will write some comment before writing our code. So what is our primitive data type? Our primitive data type has to do with some set of code blocks that represent our Java programming language. And in Java programming language, a primitive data type is very fundamental because it represents the building block of the programming language. And we have 8 kinds of primitive data type used within Java programming language. Primitive data type is fundamental in the sense that not as compared to non-primitive data type, which is generated by the programmer, but primitive data type is built within the program, is built with the programming language. So in Java programming language, we have 8 kinds of primitive data type, which includes we have int, we got long, we got float, double, we got char or character, yes, char or character, and we have short, we got let's say byte, we have boolean or bool. Good. So these are the 8 kinds of primitive data type that we use in Java programming language at most cases. We also have some extra primitive data type, which include we got fixed point, we got double precision, yes, and we have our rear. Okay, so these are the extra 3, and you can also search on them. They include like maybe for mapping, for statistics, and other things. For lab experiment, we use them in Java coding, so you can also check them. But in Java programming language, we have basic kinds of these are the 8 basic kinds of primitive data type we use within a programming language. And our primitive data type serve as the environment to our Java program, which we can work with, right? So if you know your environment, if you understand your environment, then it makes it smoother for you to work with it. So this primitive data type, we use it and most often within the Java programming language. Almost all of the things we have to do within the programming language, we use either one of or 2 of these primitive data type, or in most cases we use most of them, right? So it's very good for us to know the maximum and the minimum range of every primitive data type, with the exception of the boolean and that of the char data type. With the exception of that, almost all of the other data type has their maximum and their minimum range, right? So it's very good to understand how to use these primitive data type. For example, let's try some test case, right? We try to pass some value. We say int, and we say int array, and we assign some set of integer value to it, right? We have error. Why do we have this error? Sometimes we think that this is a compiler error or is something happening to your computer. No, it's because of the syntax error, right? We pass the maximum range of our integer data type. We pass the maximum, and this also happens for all other data type with the exception of the char and the boolean, right? So when you know the maximum and the minimum range of all of the data type that you need to work with, then you don't have challenges with like using them, right? So assume now if we try to reduce the strings of numbers we have here, like we won't have the error because it will fall in the minimum range or the maximum range of the integer data type. Now we don't have error because we have gone the we are in the range of the maximum data type of the integer primitive data type, right? So how to resolve these issues is knowing the maximum and the minimum. So here we will try to know the maximum range of all of the data type. Let's write some comment. Let's create some space. All right, so we come here and let's say int, and we say int maximum range or maximum value. Let's say int maximum value equal, and we say integer dot maximum value. Very good. So this is for the integer maximum value, right? We also come next, we say int minimum value. Let's say int equal let's say integer. My hand is pretty fast, guys. Integer dot minimum, right? So we will try to print out this statement and try to do some test case to know the minimum and the maximum range of our integer data type. We say system.out.println, you can use south, and we click enter. We write some statement. We say int minimum value. Okay, let's try to make this twice for the maximum too, so we can get a maximum of our integer data type. So we come next line and we change this guy to maximum, right? So let's try to call access the data here. We say int okay, it pop up right here, you can see, and we click enter for the minimum value. We also say int, and it will also drop down again, and we can click for that of the maximum value. Very good. Now that we have done that, we will try to run our program to get the maximum and the minimum value of our integer data type. So we come here and we try to run our program. Okay, so here we go, we have it now. So let's try to view the maximum and the minimum range of our integer data type. So you see, this is the result of the maximum and the minimum range. So you can see that our integer data type falls in 2 billion, and below 2, if you go above 2 billions, then you have if you go the maximum range above the maximum range, you also have error. If you go below the minimum range here, and you have error. So you can just like get a concept that integer data type here, you see you have 2,147,483,647. So that is for the integer data type. There are other data types too that falls in trillions. So we will also get it, so you can see. And this is the maximum range of our integer data type. And how to do the test case is that if we come here now and we copy this guy, let's say we copy this guy and we try to pass it here. Let's try to do some test case. We try to pass the variables here, the strings of numbers rather. So let's try to pass it here to the integer data type. We come here and we try to assign it. You see now we don't have error because it falls in the maximum range of our integer data type. If we add 0 behind this, that shows that we outside the range of our integer data type, so we have error now. Now we have error because we pass the maximum range of our integer data type. So it also works for the minimum range. If we erase this and we put let's get a minimum range here. Where's the minimum range? We'll copy this guy and we try to do some test case here. Also we paste this guy here. You see it falls in the minimum range of our integer data type. So if I put any amount, you got error, right? So even if you put 0, you also have error because it passed the minimum range of the integer data type. So these things are very important, and knowing how to declare some set of value and assign some set of value within the data type is very important within our Java programming language. So the next thing that we will do is we will try to apply it for all other data types, so you can see the maximum and the minimum range. I will just pause there and walk over it pretty fast. Okay, all right. Okay, so guys, welcome again. So I just went over the code pretty fast, so you can see it's basically the same thing. So like what we are repeating, like let's say we got int int maximum equal integer dot maximum value. We have int minimum equal integer dot int minimum value, all those things. So it's the same thing applied to all except for that of the char, which is this one. I just tried some test case here and the boolean value, right? So let me go over the code so you can see it here. This is the beginning, and here you can pause the tutorial and try to read the code. It's almost basically the same thing. So we try to run our program to see what we have. Let's try to run our program. Okay, so here we go. You see we have our result. This is the result of the various primitive data type. We have for the int, we got it here is false in 2 billions. We discussed it already. We have for the byte, which is for in like 127, and the minimum is minus 128. This is for the byte. We have for the long, which is like a false in 2 to the 63 power. So it's one of the largest value within the Java programming language. If like it falls in the third categories of trillion, which has to do with the quadrillion. We got quadrillion, we got quadrillion, and we have the trillion. So you see the value here. We have 9 trillion 223 quadrillion, and we have 372 trillion. We got 36 billion 840 billion. We got 775,807. So that is for the long value is very large, and it also falls in a negative range too for the minimum, you can see. So we also have for the others, and for the boolean value, like I told you, we have the true and the false value. So you can see here, and this one for the char, we didn't assign anything, so we just have null. We have empty string here. So, and you can also see for the short, we also have for the float, we have for all the others. So you can see, and we have for the double. So the double too is one of the largest value too, you can see it. All right, so I will go over the code pretty fast, and you can see some of the things we did. Maybe if you missed the code, then you can copy again. All right, I also wrote some comment. You see here the long value falls in 2 to the 63 power. Alright, so guys, this is all for this tutorial. The next tutorial we will discuss how underflow and overflow occurred within the memory of a computer. So if you have any questions about this tutorial or some of the things we said, if you want to ask like you want to make some comment, you can comment below. Thank you, and we move to our next tutorial. Okay.